My God, my feet hurt. I stopped at the back door of our house and took my shoes off. I had to take an elderly couple of clients to give me a tour of the last houses listed by the real estate company I worked for. I felt like a silly woman because I came to work in 2-inch heeled shoes. Because after walking through what seemed like 3 dozen houses and yards, I was very happy to stay barefoot. Also, I was happy for other reasons. Walking and talking paid off. The couple had opted for the largest, most elegant, and most importantly, the most expensive house. It had been hanging around the company's neck for more than 2 years. In addition to the usual commission, which should have been good by now, a bonus was offered to the lucky seller. When the deal closed and there was the prospect of getting enough money to pay our current bills, I decided to run home. I hoped it was a good chance to meet my husband Roy. He was in his final year of law school, but if I remembered his schedule correctly, would have to spend a few free hours between classes. I was ready to open the bottle of champagne we had in the fridge, drink some, and then see if I could convince him to make love. We hadn't been doing much of that lately. I attributed it to the long hours of work and the enormous amount of studying Roy had to do. If we could just make it through this last school year, we would win. We fell in love while we were still in college, and then we started dating during our sophomore year. Right after graduation, we got married. We both plunged into entry-level positions in business, working different hours, agreeing to put off having children until we were in a good financial position, perhaps even strong enough that I could quit my job and stay home. Within 6 months, our personal life was gone. Roy and I worked 16 hours a day, coming home to snap at each other. Finally, one day, we sat down and looked at each other. That has to change, Sabrina, or we won't see our first anniversary, let alone our 25th. I restrained myself from making a harsh comment with all my might. Not because he was wrong, but because that's how I'd been responding to him lately. I was using him to ease my feelings, and he was doing the same to me. I took a deep breath. You're right, honey. Now we're 2 stubborn, nasty people, and I don't like it. If we go on like this, we'll be 2 stubborn, nasty, and lonely people. He stood up and paced the room. I have an idea. It's something I've always wanted to do. It's going to mean it's going to be harder for a while, and you're going to carry a bigger load. But then, if it works out, we'll have a quiet life. So we revealed our plans to each other. Roy talked about how he wanted to be a lawyer, and I talked about how I wanted to be a homemaker one day. So he went back to college. We gave up our business careers, put his suits in storage, got rid of our second car, and moved to a small rental house near campus. I found a job at a nearby real estate firm, first as a secretary, then as a salesman, and a dang good one at that. Courses, training programs, and reports filled Roy's hours. I, on the other hand, began to learn about mortgages, facades, square footage. We really had fun impressing each other, constantly improving the skills we were learning. We didn't have much money left over from our bills, but we held our heads high. I even liked my job, so much that I thought about keeping it part-time after Roy graduated. Our personal lives came back to life, thank God. It wasn't a return to the night out we had enjoyed when we were dating, but it was very satisfying. Roy wasn't a virgin when we met, but neither was I, and what we learned from other lovers we enthusiastically applied to our relationship. I was happy. It seemed like we had everything, and we would have even more after Roy graduated. He was at a higher level in his class, and it didn't hurt that he had experience as a business executive, even at the entry level. He had already met with a couple of firms specializing in corporate clients. However, there always seems to be a however. In the second half of this semester, things went downhill again. From 3 or 4 times a week, we dropped to once a week, then once every 2 weeks, and now over a month. I was quite a normal woman, especially in terms of my appetite in bed, and I needed some love. I was so horny that I thought for a moment that Herb, the office notary, looked good. He was a guy in plaid suits with a parting in the middle. He drove our gorgeous blonde receptionist crazy with his attempts to date her, but always made ugly remarks that he thought were compliments to any of the women. The day I actually thought about it, after Herb made the comment about my legs, was the day I knew I had to do something. So the comment from Coley, the owner and director of the company, "Take the day off and celebrate the day," seemed like a godsend. I hopped out of the car in the driveway and headed for the refrigerator, contemplating which of my few fine lace outfits might be the most tempting. What the hell? I wondered. A bottle of champagne stood on the table and was open. There was a metal glass rack next to it for the glasses we kept for celebrations, and 2 glasses were missing. I'd like to believe that he was waiting for me at home and preparing a warm welcome for me, but I doubted it. First, he had no reason to think I'd be home before 5, and it was only 2:30 p.m. Second, the low female laughter coming from our bedroom was not me. I was sure of it. I was walking across the worn carpet in the hallway. The laughter grew louder, interrupted by the moans I had hoped to make myself tonight. They did. Roy was lying on his side, facing away from me, just like the blonde teenage girl he was with. Her leg was thrown back on his thigh, which I normally could have easily copied. Well, not after this hectic day. I couldn't have done it without resorting to prescription painkillers. His hips rocked back and forth, and the choking noises they made gave the impression that they were working like bellows. I caught a glimpse of them in the wall mirror. Judging by the blissful expressions on their faces, they both looked like they were really enjoying themselves. The movements quickened. There was an unrestrained cry, clearly directed toward heaven, judging by the calls to God. Then they pressed against each other. I managed to get out of sight, but not beyond the reach of the voices. Damn it, Katie, that was great. Well, at least now I had a name to go along with the body. Always is, lover boy. Roy, do we have to do this here? What if your wife catches us? Don't worry about that. She never leaves work early, and then she always passes out like an old workhorse. An old workhorse, I thought, stunned. I was 24 years old, and I thought I could stay in pretty decent shape. Not in that blonde shape, I had to admit her beauty, but damn. That's a hell of a way to talk about someone, much less someone you're married to. Someone you said, "I love you" to this morning. Roy, however, was already crying. He explained to this cutie what an indifferent woman I am, how I never understood him, how I always put work first. He even managed a muffled sob. As far as I was concerned, there were real tears running down his cheek. Damn, he was good. I was even mad at that cold woman he was married to. The one he'd done so much for, worked so hard for, worked so long to please. Of course, then I remembered that this heartless bitch was me. Anger turned the other way. I slipped back down the hallway and went looking for the video camera I'd borrowed from work. When moving on to new properties, it was helpful to record everything about them to describe them in the ads. I used it the other day and didn't return it, although I did put the tape in my briefcase. I stopped in the living room and looked around. One part of my brain thought it sounded like a really bad soap opera scene or a slapstick detective. I was going to tape my husband in his mistress. The other part was remembering the last time we used a video camera at home. Even under those circumstances, I blushed. We were enjoying a beer of Namburger Heller and Mueller. I was wearing one of his shirts and nothing else. When I leaned across the table to grab the last piece of cheese toast, he ran his hand over my leg and grinned. "Hello, beautiful. Come here often?" I turned and sat on his lap, wiggled my ass, and gave him my hottest look. "Not often, big boy. Why don't you make my visit here memorable?" We did. We made it unforgettable right on the kitchen table. Halfway through carefully unbuttoning the shirt I was wearing, he got a second inspiration. He suddenly ran into the living room and came back with a camera. "Roy." "Oh, come on, honey. This is going to be fun. Something to remind us how hot we were when we were old and gray." I wasn't an old workhorse that day. I had a sudden thought. "You've got to be kidding me," I said to myself. I ran down the hallway and looked inside. Now all I could see was a pair of legs wiggling in the air and the pumping ass of my darling. And, oh yes, I could see the tripod-mounted video camera recording it all. It was out in the open, and obviously he was hiding the footage from me. Tapes? Could there be? Was he really that confident, or was he even sillier than I thought? I ran back down the hall. I couldn't believe they hadn't heard me come and go because of their business. I looked in the closet that held our tapes together, including the unmarked one we had recorded that day. When my hands reached the back wall, I found not only this one, but 3 other tapes covered by it. None of them had labels on them. I grabbed 3 pacifiers from the trunk of my car for replacements. I stuffed them into the packages from which I had pulled the taped ones, and then put them all back where I found them. The only difference was that the closet tapes were now in my car. I didn't want to go back to the office, so I drove until the time I got home. I didn't expect to find it at home. I also found a note explaining that he accidentally knocked over a bottle of champagne and broke it. He said he was sorry. I already knew that. I just planned to make him even more upset. While he was in class, I went over the notes. Oh yes, he was busy. Not very creative though. Katie must have been signed up for Thursday. The other 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, turned out to be just as crappy. I began to wonder if I should be flattered that he would have enough energy for me to make love to me sometimes on Saturday nights. Speaking of Katie, I rummaged through the closet again and pulled out the last ribbon. I had just enough time to run to the office, plug in a couple of VCRs, and copy the tapes. Thank goodness for Roy's long lectures. They were probably less boring than I thought, though. My sweetie came home without a happy smile on his innocent face. He was good, I have to admit it. He gave the "I'm so tired, maybe tomorrow night we can" speech with such a nonchalant face. If I didn't know better, I would have believed it, but not now, given what I saw and heard. The next week was a busy one. I avoided the house during the day. I had too much to do. It was going to banks, and meeting with a pretty woman lawyer, and consulting with a rental house company. A woman's work never ends. Well, until Thursday night when I got home again at 2:30 a.m. They were definitely allies in the routine. Same bedroom, same bed, same position, same words, somehow not fun. It was Katie all over again. Well, the old home meeting schedule. This time I leaned against the doorway and didn't hide. I'll be damned, but I even had to cough to get them to notice me. I have to say that the reaction was just as I had hoped. Roy straightened up sharply with his mouth open. Katie, on the other hand, screamed and threw a sheet over herself. Honey, I can explain. I raised an eyebrow and made a hand gesture. Obviously, I could not let him talk, because that wonderful cliché was only followed by squeaks, and I so wanted to see if he could come up with something original. The representative who came with me slipped past me with a smile on her face. Here, she held out a stack of papers to him. Then she glanced at her watch and said, "You were served at 2:47 p.m. While he was looking at his hand, she turned and gave me a high five and told me to swing by her house sometime if I wanted to have some fun. I almost laughed. My friend's friend, I knew full well, was blissfully married to another cop, had lived for years, and had 3 wonderful children, but I appreciated the line. What the hell? Roy found the strength to speak. Divorce papers. What did you expect? A kiss? A good day wish? I smiled again. It also provides for a division that will divide our common property in half and give me more than half. Feel free to fight it. Why you? Katie exclaimed. You mistreated him, rejected him, and now you think you're the offended party. Well, you'll get yours. I'll take care of him. Aya. Before you become one of the defenders, little law student, you might want to take a look at this. I handed her copies of the 3 tapes. While you were frolicking around with Toy Roy, absorbing his words about me and his promises to make you queen of his castle, he was making the same deal with several others. Look at his scenes with Amberlyn, Maxine, and Tonya. You're lying, I shrugged. As if I care what you think. Whether you take them or not is your business. Meanwhile, regardless of what he told you, I'm the one paying for this house. Looking at the girl, I added, get dressed first and you can go. She left and my loving hubby and I were alone. Any answers, Roy? My anger had long since boiled over, and now I was just tired. Tired of charades, tired of him. I was even more tired of him trying to claim it was all my fault. Then he moved on to singing I Only Love You. Please, Sabrina, you just don't understand. I never meant to hurt you. It all just happened. Now I was angry again. Did this just happen to you and 4 other women? Jesus, Roy, weren't you paying attention? I know what the hell is going on. You two-faced, lying son of a bitch who was aiming a knife at my back. Hell, I told myself I was going to be calm. Then I thought, calm down, and stopped worrying. 15 minutes later, I felt much better. He used the moment during which I was asking questions about his morals, his background, and his brain to change. He popped outside to gather the rest of his things, which I had dumped abundantly through the nearest windows. I gasped. Then the door slammed shut. Of course, his keys were left on the kitchen table. Forgetting the old adage that a lawyer who represents himself always cheats his client, Roy tried to fight the divorce. He demanded a payment that would allow him to pay his bills and tuition for his last semester. The judge ridiculed him. Roy was shocked when he learned that his legal education was also considered part of common property, and that I would be entitled to a percentage of his income from that day for the rest of his life. Roy's girlfriends left him when he divorced me. Apparently, Katie told the others everything. One night, when Roy was feeding his new girlfriend a new story about his heartless wife leaving him for a sophomore student, they jumped him, drugged him, and brought him to the center of campus, where they left him. No pants, and shirtless. I always thought he should have worked harder. It's unfortunate to know that 4 angry females could do that to a man. They all cut off contact with him and spread the word about him. After that, he was out of luck. No one wants a future lawyer who only has a claim on half the money he's going to make. I've wondered ever since, had he been cheating on me the whole time Roy and I knew each other? Was he cheating on me the whole time? Or had he somehow and someway changed as a result of the opportunities given to him? Either way, he was a fool, and I didn't notice who he really was either. 2 years later, I remarried. You know, he turned out to be the younger brother of a nice female lawyer who served Roy. He was in the Marine Corps. Now he's a captain, and we have 2 wonderful boys. We are saving them for college, but this summer we are going on a family cruise for 2 weeks. It's surprisingly satisfying to feel what half of the lawyer's earnings are each month. That's such a life story. Share in the comments what you think about this situation and the behavior of the characters. And thank you for listening to the story to the end. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and be sure to put a like under this video. This will help you a lot in promoting the channel. Have a nice day.